The gentleman back, Congressman Krishnamoorthi. You're now recognized.
Good morning, Mr. DeJoy.
Good morning.
Before becoming Postmaster General, I believe you appropriately resigned from being the finance chair for the Republican National Convention, correct?
I did, sir.
And I say you appropriately resigned because even in your written testimony, you said we should keep the nonpartisan tradition of the USPS, and in this case, occupying a high-level political post. At the same time, you'd be occupying a high-level USPS post would create at the least appearance problems, if not more, right?
Yes, sir. I also think I couldn't hold both positions.
Yes, sir. Mr. Duncan, are you on the line, sir? Mr. Duncan?
Yes, Congressman.
Yes, sir. As chairman of the board, you are one of the highest-ranking officials at the USPS, correct?
As chairman of the board, I am a member of a part-time board that is Senate confirmed.
But you're the chair of the board. You're the highest-ranking official at the USPS. I'd like to point out that you are also on the board of two Republican super PACs, namely the Senate Leadership Fund and American Crossroads, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I just went to the USPS website, sir, and I looked at your bio, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point out on your official government bio at the USPS website, you said, as RNC chairman, he, namely you, raised an unprecedented $428 million and grew the donor base to 1 million, a record at the time. This is on your official government USPS bio. Mr. Duncan, I have a couple other questions for you. In your written testimony, you mentioned that an outside research firm called Russell Reynolds Associates was contracted to find the quote-unquote best person for the job of Postmaster General, correct?
Correct. You
further noted in your testimony that Russell Reynolds reviewed 212 candidates, and then they narrowed the search to 53 after they reviewed those people's bios and backgrounds, and they vetted them, correct?
Yes, sir.
And interestingly, according to David Williams, the former vice chairman of the board, the former inspector general for 13 years at the USPS, as well as a published report over the weekend, Mr. DeJoy was not among the 53 presented to the board. Either one, Russell Reynolds considered Mr. DeJoy and decided there were 53 better candidates than him, or Mr. DeJoy was not considered by Russell Reynolds at all before presenting the 53 finalists. Which was it, Mr. Duncan?
We were still in the process of developing the pool before we had our first round interviews at that point.
I understand. You're talking about the first round interviews, the round of 14. But you don't dispute, obviously, in your answer, that Mr. DeJoy did not make the initial cut of 53 finalists presented to the board, but he was inserted into the round of 14, not by merit, but his connections. It would be the same as an NCAA team not making the round of 64, but then swooping into the round of the Sweet 16. And that's what happened here. So let me ask you this question. Mr. Williams repeatedly asked the board to do a background check on Mr. DeJoy by the Postal Inspection Service. Do you know what the Postal Inspection Service is, sir?
Yes, sir.
And you and the board refused to do that background check. And that was not shared with the board before they voted. Now let me turn to my final set of questions here. Mr. Duncan, you were once quoted in a Republican fundraising letter saying, quote, the Obama-Biden Democrats and their liberal special interest allies are trying to steal their election victories from Republicans. I assume you still believe that about Joe Biden and the Democrats, sir?
I have no knowledge of that.
Yes,
letter.
It's in the CNN article that quotes you directly right here. And then we have another article from the Las Vegas Sun. It says, again, you wrote in a letter, Democrats will soon be trying to pad their totals at ballot boxes across the country with votes from voters that do not exist. Do you still believe that to be the case, Mr. Duncan?
What are the dates of these letters?
This article is from the Las Vegas Sun from 2008. Do you still believe this,
Yes, sir.
this sentiment?
No, I don't believe anyone at this point who is a nominee of the major parties is trying to steal an election.
Thank you. That would be in contravention of what the president said in a tweet on August 20th. They are trying to steal this election, the Democrats.
The gentleman's time has expired, but the gentleman may answer.
Well, let me respond. There were lots of false premises in this about making the cut. The process worked that we had lots of people who put input, including members of Congress, members of the administration, all of our board members. I think I put in a half a dozen different names. We ran into a period of time after the holidays and when the COVID started that we weren't moving as fast as possible. We got together, we talked about, well, we need to make sure that we have as many candidates as possible because you get a better pool, you get a better choice at the end of that time. It was during that period of time that Mr. DeJoy's interest became, or availability became known to me. I submitted that name as I had many others.